Hey guys, I would just like to say that it is currently snowing outside and I love it because it means that getting closer to the end of the semester and Christmas and all the holiday excitement, I needed to share that with somebody. Back to regularly scheduled booktubing stuff. I have a review ready for you on Lucky by Alice Sebold. Before I get into what this book is about, I just want to sort of put out a bit of a warning. If somebody doesn't really like reading about really sensitive stuff, a lot of violence, then they probably just say bye and then just kind of click out of this one just because it deals with some pretty heavy stuff and I'm obviously going to be talking about it a little bit. Alice Sebold, for those of you who are like, I think I know that name, she wrote The Lovely Bones, and if you know what The Lovely Bones about, you probably have an idea about what this book focuses on. The Lovely Bones is about the rape and murder of a young teenage girl named Susie Salmon, and it's been on like the top of the bestseller list. It's won a bunch of awards. They made it into a movie, but I read the book and I absolutely loved it. It was really well written and it was definitely a tough subject, but it made the book that much more rewarding in the end. So when I found Alice Sebold's two other books that she wrote, I picked up Lucky and The Almost Moon, so now I've read Lucky, and it's actually her memoir, and in the memoir, the first chapter opens up with her getting raped. So you kind of know now where the story of The Lovely Bones came from in terms of it was an expression of her experience and having to deal with the rape and how her family had to deal with the rape. That was sort of mirrored in The Lovely Bones. But this is her own story. It's obviously very different just because she's a different age, different place. So the first chapter of this book opens up with her coming home from a party. She's a college freshman, she's 18, and she gets raped by this guy. She's never met him before. He just she can hear him coming up behind her, and then he sort of overtakes her, and it goes into some very gritty detail. She doesn't leave anything to the imagination. So I was reading this book in public, this first chapter, and I was sort of riveted. It's one of those things where it's so horrible you can't look away. I just kept reading and wasn't really aware of anything else that was going on around me just because it was so powerful. I don't want to say that it was good because obviously somebody getting raped is not good, but it was just written really, really well. From that moment on, the entire book sort of flows out from that point. She sort of stumbles home. She gets really beaten up too. So not only is she raped, but she looks physically, she's bleeding, she's got cuts and scratches all over her. So when she ends up back in her dorm, people are sort of staring at her, wondering what the heck's going on. And eventually she does go to the hospital and she goes to the police station. The one thing that I really liked about Alice is that she wanted to get her rapist. She wanted to bring him down. And there was a lot of hate. She wanted him to die, basically. And that is sort of talked about a lot in the book. So that's sort of the first part of her dealing with it and having to tell her parents, and just how everybody looks at her differently because of what happened to her. She's that girl who got raped. It's just, you know that person on campus. It's that girl. She is that girl. And that's the very end of her first year at university, and she actually decides to go back in the fall for her second year just because she doesn't want her life taken away from her by the fact of what happened to her. And she actually ends up running into her rapist on the street in October of that year. She goes back to the police and a trial ensues from there. The first part of this book is about the very aftermath of what happened to her, dealing with that, how her family deals with it, how her friends deal with it. And the second half of the book is more the trial and can they bring this guy down, because of course it's very difficult to indict somebody for rape. There's a lot of gritty detail here. It's a very sad book, but also kind of uplifting at the same time. Towards the end of the book, she starts talking about more, what happened to her 10 years after the rape. It's such a good book. Like that's how I have to put it like that. It's such a good book. It's a really tough subject, but it's written so well. I really like how Alice Sebold writes. I mean, I told you I love The Lovely Bones, so I figured I was gonna like Lucky, and because of that I'm gonna give the book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm gonna recommend it to anybody who read and liked The Lovely Bones, is looking for a really good memoir, somebody who enjoys a story that is gritty but is very satisfying in the end. Overall, a really fantastic book. If you have read the Lovely Bones or Lucky. Feel free to leave comments below about what you thought about them. All the links and they're in the doobly-doo as usual. So thank you guys for watching and I'll see you later.